Hello, friends. Today I am joined by Alisha and Olivia Gratehouse. Alisha is an artist, minister's wife, and veteran homeschool mom of 3 young adults. And she is passionate about nurturing creativity and bringing the joy of art to others. In 2014, she began creating online art courses to fill what she believed was a gaping void in the area of homeschool art. And now, through her company, the Masterpiece Society, she offers a complete art curriculum, teaching kids and teens art expression through multiple art mediums and techniques, art history, and appreciation. She is also the founder of the Beautiful Life Creative Community, where she encourages women to nourish their spirits, cultivate their creativity, and live a beautiful life. Her daughter, Olivia, is a sci-fi writer, classically trained pianist, and a tea addict. She was homeschooled from the beginning, like I was, and graduated from Bible college in 2016. Currently, Olivia manages and is a contributing artist and writer for the Masterpiece Society. And when she's not scribbling away, she enjoys reading, cooking, crafting, and quoting movies. So it sounds like some fun times at your house for sure.
Definitely.
Yes, ma'am.
There's always something going on.
Well, before we get started talking about art, which I'm really excited to dive into with both of you, one of the things I love to do here on the podcast is just sort of talk about some of the things that make us similar and sort of different perspectives on homeschooling. And it's really encouraging to hear each of the different guests kind of come on and answer a few questions from their own point of view. So I just would like to start first by asking you, Alisha, why did you start homeschooling, and did your approach to education change at all over the years?
You know what? I haven't thought about this, but just as you were asking me, I was reminded that before I ever had children, I worked at a Christian publishing company and talked to a man who gave me a long spiel about how important it was to homeschool your children. And I think that actually was really, it fell on fertile soil because I loved that idea. And in fact, I wish that I had been homeschooled back in the 80s. I was like, Mom, could you just homeschool me? But she was too busy. But anyway, once I found out I was pregnant with Olivia, who's my firstborn, it was in me that I was going to homeschool from the beginning. And I found this was back in the day before Ambleside Online existed. Well, they existed, but they were called the Parents Union Online or something like that. We didn't have the internet like we have today. We just had daily messages where everybody's little emails were in a digest. So that's how I learned about the Charlotte Mason method. And that is what we basically stuck with that. Mm-hmm. We would do a little bit of our own things here and there, but we were mostly Charlotte Masoners the whole time.
Yeah. And then do you think, as you look back kind of from this veteran perspective, are there things that you noticed that you really worried about early on that now kind of at the end of your journey, you can look back and think, I didn't need to worry about that?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I was telling Olivia, I worried about my middle child, who's my firstborn son, who was always, never where I left him. He was very ADHD, and he needed to run and play outside to get all his energy out. And it was very seldom when I could get him to concentrate. And I was pretty hard on him. And now, he still has a little touch of that, but he works for us, and he's like a right-hand man to my husband, and worrying about getting all the math lessons completed and making good grades in math when that wasn't my specialty at all, being right brain. So anyway, I can look back over the years and think that I did worry a little bit too much, and I should have probably been a lot more laid back.
I think when you're right there in the middle of it and when you're right there in the middle of it, something can just sort of grab your imagination. It feels so big. It just can take over everything you're thinking about for that season. And so it's good for us to remember, in 20 years, as you look back on it, is that one math worksheet really going to matter as much as, the relationship with your children?
Cry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, Olivia, how about for you? I would love to hear some of your favorite parts of being homeschooled, or maybe if you saw some downsides. It's always interesting to talk to another homeschool graduate.
Right. Well, I loved being able to go at my own pace. That was something that meant a lot to me. The the fact that I could sit and focus on something that I had a lot more interest in, like literature and stuff like sciences and stuff like that. And then even if you wanted to work on your schoolwork pretty quickly so that you had the rest of the day to go out and play, that was always a bonus for me. I liked being able to do that. It was also like the connectedness of us as a family. We did our school together. We had read alouds, we did science experiments and nature walks, and I loved getting to do that as a family, all of us getting together and doing stuff like
They're
that.
still best friends to this
Yeah.
day. They still get together on Friday nights if they're all home from work and do their things together.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I'm just imagining in like 20 years, everyone comes back and is like still quoting Shakespeare at each other in the living room. You know, I'd be like, yes, victory. Well, let's transition and talk a little bit about art, which you guys are passionate about and have so many wonderful resources for. And it is something that I feel so inadequate about as a homeschool mom. So I just am going to ask you these questions basically so I can learn all your wisdom here. But
I don't have much.
Well, was art always an important part of your own family's homeschool life? And then kind of broadening out from there, why do you think it's something worth including in our homeschool families?
Well, I will say that art and crafting was always a part of my mother, my aunts, my extended family. We would do that together around Christmas, craft and create. And I was always the right-brained artsy one, whereas my sister was good at business and math. Her kids are calculus teacher and a CPA, and then I'm like floating around in the atmosphere doing my own thing. So yeah, I was always kind of artsy, but once we got to homeschooling, of course, I was trying to do everything Charlotte Mason said, and the picture study did not work with my family, and it was a little bit tedious.
It was on the boring side.
Yeah, it was boring. So, but I was also a pastor's wife. We fostered children, so I had my hands full. But once the kids got a little bit bigger, and I realized, hey, this would be perfect to, just start offering online courses for homeschoolers. Because I mean, I love kids. I haven't grown up myself, so I was waiting on you to say something. But
Nope.
And plus, I love doing art, and it just sort of meshed. And so I think that if I had had the resources that exist today, it would have been better for our family. But back then we did a little bit of picture study,
just a little bit here and there.
Not read art books, looked at pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
Went to art museums.
Well, do you think there are some strategies that you would suggest just to make sure art can get included in our homeschool day? Because, on the internet, we're bombarded with all these things and you're supposed to do this and that, and it can feel like one more thing on our to-do list. So if we're convinced, okay, this is worth doing, what are some strategies to actually, get to it?
Well, one thing that a lot of the members of our Masterpiece Society studio do is they have a Fine Arts Friday. So they plan a special day where it's not just art, it might be music or composer study. I think we did stuff like that with art and music.
Nature walks,
Shakespeare. It was like a fun day. And then also and if you don't want to do it once a week, then maybe once a month, or even it doesn't have to be a subject, just let your kids have at it outside and, with just something to let them be creative. And then I lost my train of thought with that.
Well, I was going to add on from the perspective of being the one in school. That was always something fun to look forward to. Like on each days, we would try to have something a little bit more in the fine arts. We didn't stick with it as much, but we tried to do that. And that was always something from my perspective. I always looked forward to doing the fun parts of the day and all that stuff. So when you have it scheduled, like on a Fine Arts Friday, that's something that they can look forward to all week.
Yeah, I love that perspective and kind of not having the pressure of you have to do this large amount every single day, but a little bit on once a week or even once a month or as you feel led during the day as the kids just go.
Child, just let them go.
Yes, that's what art generally looks like at my house. It's like we have a craft cabinet full of random stuff and I just let them cut it and glue it and do whatever they want to do with it.
And that's perfect. They're learning what they like. They learn how to express themselves and they're not put in a box of art has to look like this.
Well, I would like to kind of get a big picture overview of what art might look like differently at elementary or middle or high school ages. As a mom of 5, wide age range, I often am looking for things we can all do together, and that can be good. But I know there's also value in really, meeting the needs, age appropriate development of our children. So what would be sort of a big picture things we could be working on and focusing on at each stage?
Well, Olivia and I discussed this, so I'll let you chime in whenever you want to. But we were talking about maybe just starting, if you want to have all your children together, an artist, and focus on one piece of art and find a template that, say you're doing Van Gogh's sunflowers, and let your older ones use whatever they want. They could do watercolors or acrylics, as long as you have a template, and then let the ones that are younger color it, or give little ones watercolors and just let them go to town having fun. You can all talk about it together while you might read a little bit, a bio about Van Gogh's life, or listen to our podcast that we the Masterpiece Makers. I just put that little plug in.
Yes. Oh, my kids were so excited when they heard I was talking to you guys. They were like, "Oh, the people from the art podcast."
Yeah, we are such big dorks, so sorry about that.
It was so fun. Yeah.
But yeah, we like to make art fun, and obviously there's going to come a time where you're going to want to help each individual one, but I would make it fun for everybody and let them do what they can so that nobody is frustrated. And if the older ones want to go off and do even more and learn on their own, then that would be good. What do you have anything to add to that?
No, you said everything that I was going to say.
Well, let me ask if I can push a little bit. I'll see what Olivia would have to say about this. Let's say we're talking about a high school student and maybe something we're wanting to do a little bit more formally, like a fine arts credit or something. What do you think that could look like?
Well, honestly, you could be studying the artists themselves, and even in one of our courses, we reproduce some of the art pieces from the more master artists. And like she was saying, we have different levels so that a younger kid could maybe just color in the picture. But with the older kids, you have those extra steps where they're taking more time and they're able to focus more and really just put into it however much that they feel like they want to. But we also have the step-by-step guides, making it easier so that they can follow along. Does that answer your question?
And adding, like we were talking about, adding even learning the techniques of the
right
artist,
that's right,
adding in more art appreciation, let them maybe gather information and write their own little bios and just get to know them. That's how we have just learned so much, and we feel like some of the artists, like, we know them because we just know so much about them, and that's kind of weird though.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit, but it's fun. It's a fun process to learn about them.
Oh yeah, well, it's fun to learn. I mean, wasn't it Dur you guys talked about? He was like a rock star with his hair.
Yes, those long luscious.
That's right. See, it stuck with me. Kind of a weird random fact, but I really appreciate what you had to say too, that I don't have to feel like as a mom that I have to know all about the art. You can lead step by step, and some of it is just learning about the artists as well and the technique. And I can read a book about, I can read a book out loud, and then to have the younger siblings kind of coming along so they feel a part of it. That's really great. Well, what would you say to a mom who feels really inadequate about, art history or the hands-on implementation of art? Is art study just for artistic mamas?
I hope not.
Absolutely not.
No, I basically learned a lot, not just art, but I mean, I would learn, and you do that too, I'm sure, as you go with your kids, you learn about different scientists and different things. So why not just learn with your children what you want to learn? And I don't want anyone ever to feel like they have to do something. I know some moms think they don't have a creative bone in their body, so how can they help their children do any kind of art? But, we learn from those who've gone, and that I love to offer art courses, and the moms, we have so many moms participating, and they go, lessons ahead of their kids so that they can come back and then help them complete those.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like people get it in their heads, like especially the older you get it in your head, oh, I got to make this perfect. And if it's not perfect, then I can't do art at all. But that's not the point of art at all. Art is not meant to be perfect. Art is meant to be an expression of yourself. So if you have all your own creative flares, even if you mess up in certain areas, it's such an easy fix. And it's more of the creative process of expressing yourself and what it means to you, what art means to you, instead of trying to stay within the lines per se.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what if it's your child who's resistant to art? Maybe it is that fear of failure or the perfectionism that's creeping in, or maybe they're just like, no, I have no desire to do this art. Is there a way that we can help them kind of grow an artistic mindset or be willing to try something new?
Yeah, I would want them to at least try something once before they just decide that they don't like it, and with no pressure on them whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned,
yeah, at least try different art aspects, because there's watercolor, there's acrylics, there's sculpting, there's oil pastels. There's so many different varieties of art that they could try. And if they just found one that they liked better, I mean, that's always better than nothing.
There's some that I don't like at all. I prefer to stick with paint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, as you think back about the hundreds, I'm sure between the two of you, it's probably multiple hundreds of art projects you've ever done. Do you have any particular project that really stands out in your mind as something that you just really remember loving doing at the time, or that you learned a lot from?
Well, the ones, I'll let you talk for yourself, but the ones that I've enjoyed have been since I have started teaching, because I've learned so much more. I mean, I took art appreciation in college, but I've learned so much more teaching it myself. And so this wall back here is like just copies of some of the most famous pieces. And I have loved over the years, just getting to know the master artists and recreating their pieces and learning their techniques.
How about you, Olivia?
Well, mine is kind of a given. My favorite has been literature, which is basically taking different pieces of literature and making a piece inspired by it. That's kind of been my baby. And I don't know, there's just something about, well, I've always loved books, and there's just it's been really wonderful getting to take these pieces that I've grown up loving and then making a piece of art inspired by them that kids can work on while they're reading these books.
Yeah, I love that. I was looking over some of the options with my daughter, who's going to be doing some of these art projects for her high school year, is very excited. And she also loves books and loves writing. She's done, Rimo and things in the past. And so that was like the perfect combination of her interests. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to need to help you with these so that I can, get an excuse to do them too.
Yeah, there you go. Bonding time.
That's right. Well, we mentioned earlier, you guys have this fun and fabulous art history podcast. And so you guys find all sorts of kind of unique and quirky things about the artists, but you're also really teaching us about the technique of the artist, where their place in history is, and all these things. So as you have, either someone from the podcast or just in your own studies, if you could meet one of these artists and either hang out with them or like do an art project with them, which artist would you want to hang out with?
Van Gogh.
Tell me why.
Him. Oh my goodness. He was so sweet. And I don't know, he lived such a tragic life. And I would have loved to have known or spent time with him to show him just how beautiful his art was, and that what he created was something worthwhile and worth his time.
And I would be the same, because I have a book of his that are just his letters to his brother, and some of the most profound and beautiful quotes about loving people and God. And his heart was just so precious. And so I would be the same. I love Claude Monet as my favorite artist, but if I were to meet one, it would be Vincent.
Yeah. Like that one Doctor Who episode where they go and meet Vincent van Gogh. Every time at the very end, it's like the waterworks happen, because we always cry. So
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, this season, I'm asking all of my guests the same 2 questions. So with question 1, I'll ask Olivia to go first, and then I'll swap. And with question 2, I'll ask Alisha to go first. So Olivia, what are you reading lately?
Oh man, I usually have some kind of science fiction book that I'm reading. So I'm currently in the middle of an Asimov. I keep going on and off while reading the same book, but that's usually what I'm reading.
She's a robot.
Yeah, I like robots and science and stuff. So.
How about you, Alicia? What are you reading?
I am reading, I also have several books going, but the one that I'm actually being very consistent on and trying to finish right now is called The Practice by Seth Godin. And it just came out this past year. And it basically, you were talking about the kind of concept of that book is that whatever art, if you're a writer or if you are a creator or photographer or actor, just practice. Fail, learn from your mistakes, edit yourself, and just keep on practicing, keep putting it out there, and forget about fear, forget about trying to be authentic, just do the work. And it's been a really good book.
And that's applicable for the art of business, for visual art, for our writing. That's kind of applicable in a lot of areas. Yeah. Well, the final question I'm going to ask everyone this season, and I'll ask Alicia this question first, is what is your best tip for helping the homeschool day run smoothly?
Let them have a lot of outdoor time, especially if you have boys. Like my boys, I think they spent most of their childhood in our forest in the backyard. And I don't know, we were talking earlier, just looking back over our homeschooling years, mama just needs to relax a bit more and know that it's all going to work out. And it's you being consistent, having your children in your home, having dad there if he can be, you know, and just providing that security and stability and love and peace.
You know, last season, the question I was asking my guests was, what's your strategy for helping with a homeschool day going wrong? And I would say overwhelmingly, the tip was to send them outside. But I like that your tip is to send them outside in order to help it run smoothly. And maybe then it will help keep the day from going downhill.
Another tip is put them in the bathtub.
Everybody loves to play in water. Yes. Well, Olivia, what would you say? What would be your tip for a homeschool day running smoothly?
Well, definitely let your kids go at their own pace. I mean, there are going to be different subjects that they are so much better at and that they are going to need a lot more time with. So if they need to spend more time on, say, math is the universal, nobody likes it. If they need to at a slower pace, but if they wanted to read more and more, then they would have that freedom to just keep on reading as much as they want. So just
like directed.
Yeah, just go at your own pace.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the gifts of homeschooling, that we can zip forward when we want to, and then we don't even have to keep at the same pace. I think that's a challenge. People think, oh, well, they were going so quickly in the subject and now they're slowing down. I need to keep them on the same pace or whatever. And just that flexibility of really going through the ebbs and flows. When things are harder, we can slow down, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not getting behind anyone, you know, behind whom? We're just going at our own pace. So
exactly.
Well, where can people find you both all around the internet?
MasterpieceSociety.com is our website, and it's also our IG handle and Facebook handle, Masterpiece Society, one word.
All right, great. And I will have that linked up in the show notes for this episode over at humilityanddoxology.com. Thank you both so much for chatting today. This has been fun.
Thank you, Amy, for inviting us.